so ancient we have no idea what internet is. Maybe we think it's a mosquito or a spider web or something, but web, yeah, at least I got web. But anyway.
We know a few ancient ones.
Who gate crashed there? So, you know, as Isaac was, oh, okay. Isaac, have you frozen?
No,
Probably has.
I'm good.
Okay. As I was listening to Isaac talk, I remember the scripture which says, be not just hearers of the word, but doers of the word. And I think the same principle can apply whether you're a vocalist, a violinist, a guitarist, a drummer, or even for that matter, a sound engineer, because some of you may be doing that in your churches. It is so important. In fact, the Bible goes on to say, to your knowledge, add wisdom, and to your wisdom, understanding. And if I were to break that down, knowledge is just getting the information. Wisdom is knowing that you have to work with the information. And understanding is mastering the information that you get, which is a function of practice and repeated trying. For those of you who are instrumentalists, for whatever length of time, and you're thinking like, oh my God, I'll never be able to do this, I'll never be able to do that. As I look at your profiles, I can see you have so much time, God willing. You're young enough to put a lot of time and a lot of practice into that. I'm going to make a statement which might surprise you. And that is one of my biggest gripes with life right now is that I don't have enough time to practice. I just don't have enough time to keep practicing. And I can tell if, for example, we're on stage and I'm playing or whatever, I can tell when I'm out of practice because there are certain things that I don't do as efficiently as I may have done if I had practiced. There are certain keys I can execute a song much better than others, whereas I should be able to execute a song in any key. An experience I had many years ago is when we joined a certain church, and there was an elderly American lady who used to play the organ, and she could only play in flat keys, E flat, B flat, A flat, you know, all of those kind of things. And she wasn't going to budge. And anyway, she was 20 years older than me, if you can believe that. But the thing is, I used to prefer playing in sharps, like A major or E major or D major. And suddenly I had to play a whole lot of hymns in E flat instead of E, or in A flat instead of A, or in, C sharp instead of D. That was stress, and she wasn't going to change. So I had to go back and unlearn the keys I was used to playing in so that I could be a part of that worship team and join. And that was probably the best thing that happened to me at that point in time. Much, much younger, I was around 10 or 11 years old. I had this piano teacher who was crazy. No matter how much you faked it, the moment you started playing at the next lesson, she could tell you've not practiced. And so that was the beginning of a process that made me realize, you know, you can't fake it, or you can't fake it for long. You better just get practicing. I hope you can still hear me. If you can, just give me a thumbs up or something. Great, thumbs, yeah. I see a toenail, I see a hoof, yeah, no problem, great. So, what I would say, Isaac also made mention of the fact that because the churches are closed, those of us who only play on Sunday might have issues by the time we end up going back to church. Let me address this by saying, I recognize that for some of you, the only place you may be able to access an instrument is in church on Sunday. But perhaps you might want to persuade the pastors, or you have, or worship leaders, to say that, look, we need to keep in practice. Is there a way you can avail this instrument for me once or twice a week? I'll show you where I live, or whatever it is, so that you keep in practice. That might be a nice way to go around it, whether it is the guitar or the piano. For those of you who are largely doing voice, it's a little bit better because there are many aids you can get on the internet that help you develop your voice and your practicing. And I'm sure Isaac will be able to give you those links. Moving on, I would say that anytime in life somebody wants to improve something, there will always be factors or issues which come to make it so difficult. You may decide I'm going to put 1 hour a day in practice, but suddenly you have domestic issues or domestic work to do, or you have to run an errand and things like that. And I know someone who stayed in a family with many kids and there were only 3 bedrooms. So they would literally go to the toilet with a pillow and practice singing in the pillow so no one hears, because there was nowhere else. Or they go to the back of the compound, or go for a walk and just scream, or whatever it is they were doing. And, you know, so whatever it takes. And some people might hear you practicing your voice or the guitar or the piano, and they say, what is that noise? Nowadays, I think a lot of electronic instruments, not necessarily guitar, have got a place for headphones. So if you can, you know, trust God to get even a basic pair of earphones or earplugs, that might sort out the problem. Let me go into, I know Isaac has already defined practice in so many ways, but have you heard that statement, practice what you preach? What you're preaching, quote unquote, is that I am a guitarist. But what you're practicing is that I read the Bible every day and I study the word so that I can be a laborer able to divide the word. So in many ways, the practice of your instrument or your voice is being able to divide the skill, to do it backwards, forwards, in your sleep, in your dream. Even when you're not with the instrument or you're not practicing, try to do it mentally, try to visualize it, try to feel it, you know. You've heard in the medical profession, they call doctors medical practitioners. I guess that assumes they have practiced, and many times doctors perform the work repeatedly. Those of you who have watched someone driving a car, or if you drive a car, or yeah, let's stick to a car. There is the place where you come out of driving school and maybe you've got your license and you think, sasa nimepata license. Now I can drive to Mombasa. Let me tell you, the day after you got your license, driving to Mombasa will be a lot of stress because you know the other drivers, the potholes, matatus, donkeys, mosquitoes, whatever is out there. They will come in your way. And it is only repeated driving over a period of time that will make you so proficient that when someone jumps on the road, you will not swerve into the kiosk next door. You just give it a small millimeter and be able to avoid, or you automatically put the brakes. Can I give the car example a little bit further? Someone who has been able to discipline their driving, or no, who has not been able to discipline their driving, when an emergency happens or someone suddenly, they'll lift their hands from the wheel and they'll lift their feet from the brakes and they say, hurry. But a driver who has mastered the skill will instantly begin to execute either fast braking or slowing down or shifting or whatever it is because they have practiced. Does that make sense? I respect every lady who has a child because, you know, when the lady, you can be having a conversation and cooking food and the baby is hungry and you'll give them breast milk while you're doing that because you've practiced. Can you imagine if the job was given to men? First of all, we drop the baby, we burn the food. Yeah, okay, Isaac, don't panic. You know, you drop the baby, you burn the food, you panic. So the food is gone, baby is gone, everything. Thank God for ladies. And for gentlemen who like martial arts or, you know, all of these kind of, you know, karate or whatever people do, if you try to get into self-defense and you've just done it for 2 weeks, you'll hurt yourself. But if you've really mastered the movements involved, then you'll defend yourself and those who love you. Now, everything we're talking about in terms of instruments and voice applies whether you're a guitarist or a drummer or a violinist or a trumpeter or a nyatiti player. Let's become ethnic here. Or a kalimba or a hand drum. It doesn't matter what it is, a kayamba. All of those things can be practiced. You can hear someone playing a tambourine until you say, hey, what didn't I learn? Because they've practiced the insides and the outsides of it. So how do you discipline yourself? How do we discipline ourselves to practice music? There's many ways. Number one, this sounds very interesting. Take time to get inspired. Because when you're inspired, for example, if you were young and you saw someone running 100 meters and you say, me, when I grow up, I want to run 100 meters like Usain Bolt. That is inspiration. That will, and so you may be, and that's the other thing I'm going to say. Never listen to somebody who sounds better than you and then give up. You need to understand that they spent more time than you. They might be older than you, or they may have started 10 years earlier than you, even though you are the same age. So one of the most dangerous things about hearing somebody better is discouragement. You must turn discouragement into inspiration. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Sometimes a lot of people give up at that point. They say, hiya, that one, yo, haiwezekani. Yote yawezekana, but that one is not possible. You must allow yourself to be inspired. Isaac may talk about how I may play the piano, but I'm maybe 2 weeks older than him. So I've had more than 2 weeks longer than he has to. You get it. I would expect that by the time he is not even my age, but somewhere near my age, he will be so good, not at what I do, but at what he does. Because there's only one Isaac. And there are ways he may approach this thing that I might not have thought of. Because, you know, everyone is unique. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So make time to get inspired. That's number one. Number two, as far as possible, I know this is difficult, isolate and eliminate distractions. And in these days of social distancing, that might be easier to do. You know, but I don't know. I know some of us may live in houses where there's 20 rooms and 2 people. And some people may live in houses where there's 20 people and 2 rooms. And I understand that. But, you know, trust God to make some way, somehow, whatever it takes. If it's as a vocalist, go and scream in the forest or wherever it is, you know. Well, don't scream, but, you know, do some. Isaac can show you those exercises. Many times we get distracted. Now, as I look at your photographs across the screen, I know a lot of you are distracted by one thing, your mobile phone. Throw it in the toilet before you practice. If it's a significant other, true love waits. They can wait for you to finish practicing. They can wait for you to
social distance them.
You social distance them. You social exile.
Yeah.
You know, because listen, let me tell you something. At the end of the day, you, even if, let's be blunt, even if it's somebody you hope to marry one day, don't you want to present the best you that you can, which includes someone who has practiced to the point that they're really good? I know I'm joking, but think about it. So eliminate the distractions. Put off the mobile phone. You were born before you got it. You will not die if it's put off for 1 hour. Okay. The next thing, there is a beautiful song from a very old musical called The Sound of Music. And the words are, climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow till you find your dream. And what is that saying? Take small steps daily. Rome, as they say, was not built in a day. So do not think that in 1 hour of practice, you're going to achieve what you're hearing in your head. And many times, by the way, what you're hearing in your head is way ahead of what you can do. And that's a good thing. That's vision. That's inspiration. So do not think that just because you've achieved, let's call it 1 centimeter of progress, that you're going to die. No. If you ask those who raised you, they'll tell you that you didn't walk overnight. You started by crawling and all of that kind of stuff. And in many ways, even as an adult, improving your singing skills or your guitar skills or whatever skills you may have towards music, even your conducting skills. And those of you who may compose music, even composition and your skills and your ability to play with language is something you must also practice and put into development. And then so take small steps. Oh, by the way, that song I quoted, the words go on to say, till you find your dream, a dream that will need all the love you can give every day of your life for as long as you live. It's a very inspirational song. And that's what it takes. Until God decides to take you home, you will always be trying, or must always be trying, to improve yourself. That is why I'm upset with myself. I don't have the time and I give myself so many excuses. I'm just riding on what I practice, whenever. Point number 4, give yourself no choice but to take action. You saw that guy with the bicycle. Let me put it in Kenyan terms. Convince yourself that there is no otherwise but to take action a little bit at a time. There is no otherwise. Give yourself no choice. If you have a vision, that's the best thing. You won't perish on the way. Allow yourself to see that vision until you're ready to, die for it. Die in terms of lack of action, lack of consistency, and so on and so forth. And for those of you who may be a little bit more advanced as singers or advanced as musicians, the 5th point is explore new areas of musical focus. Maybe you've always played R&B, or you've always sung like CeCe Winans or Masi Masika or somebody like that. That's all good. Try something different. Try something different. I'm sure, ladies, when you cook a stew or a curry or whatever, once in a while you say, sijajaribu, let me experiment with that one. So try another approach. I shouldn't have said ladies, because even men cook. By the way, Isaac is a very good cook. And no, don't start calling him. See you cook me dinner. See you cook me dinner. Yeah. Anyway, so, but explore new areas. You can say, me, damu yangu ni hip hop, or kapuka, or kikapu, or whatever they call it nowadays. No, who said so? Who said so? Diversity. God is a God of diversity. You get what I'm saying. Oh, is somebody screen sharing here?
Who's that?
Kika, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell your relative to stop gate crashing, Isaac? Okay, may I continue?
Yeah.
Yes. So practice. Practice makes perfect and permanent. Proper preparation prevents poor performance, as Isaac has already kind of said. Like I said, in different words, set your goal and tell yourself, I have no otherwise than to get to that goal. If you're new in your instrument, let me give you timelines. If you're brand new, do at least 20 minutes a day. At least 5 or 6 times a week, if possible. If I recognize that we have limitations sometimes of access to the instrument. And for those of you who have great faith, you say, God, this is something I need. Please supply somehow. Because, and you may think it's too expensive. God thinks I'm being greedy. Listen, God does not supply greed. He supplies need. So if he thinks you need it, then invoke the scripture. My God supplies all my needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. You need a keyboard, you need a guitar, you need some vocal workouts, you need an environment. You get what I'm saying? Because he can do that. If you are an intermediate practitioner of your instrument, try 30 to 40 minutes per day where possible. And if you can't do it per day on an instrument, do it mentally. If it's a keyboard, draw a keyboard on a what do you call it, paper? Manila paper. Or draw a guitar on the manila paper and visualize yourself doing that. For the guitar, you can draw a guitar with frets, and you know what the notes on the frets are. And likewise, with a piano, you can draw the notes over there. With a violin, it might be a little more complicated. With a nyatiti, I have no idea what to do. I'm sure we'd figure something out. And if you're advanced, 60 minutes a day minimum. Regardless, whatever your level is, consistency is what we're looking for. So start with a goal. Start with a goal. What is your goal? I want to be fill the blank, and hold on, because when that goal dies, we perish because of the lack, the absence of that vision. What is your goal? What do you want to be? And I want to challenge you again. All of you, to a greater or lesser extent, are musicians, whether you're a singer or an instrumentalist. What did you see yourself becoming? And life has taken it backwards. Go back and revisit your dream. Go back and revisit your dream, because that dream had nothing to do with your circumstances. It may have had to do with what you were inspired by or who you were inspired by. Follow your dream, because if you don't, something inside you will die inside. There are many ways to die before your time, and that's one of them. I could tell you a lot of things about that. So many of you have calendars. Maybe you've marked the times you study or the time you go to whatever. And I know our calendars have been destroyed by this corona business. But it gives you an opportunity, by the way, to fill your calendar more with what your dream is and what your music aspirations are. Stick with that list and make a track of your progress. Monitor your progress. Be your own toughest instructor. If you have a brother or a sister or a close friend who you can be in touch with, who can make you accountable ruthlessly, and they say, oh, today was your, what have you done? You know what I'm saying? It sometimes helps. It sometimes helps. And don't bite off more than you can chew. You know, what does the Bible say? Here a little, there a little. It's sometimes small steps that help. By the way, Isaac, for the record, there are some links and things that I'll send to you, and you can send to your people.
Yes, please.
As time goes
please,
on.
Yeah.
Draw upon your inspiration. Remember, you may have been inspired by listening to some musician, or, you know, you guys, you know, it's not fair. When I was young, there was nothing like YouTube. Oh my God. And for those of you who are able to get online, and all of you are, you can find some absolutely beautiful inspiration in terms of singers and artists and things like that. And those ones you see performing these complicated things, do not think they just woke up one day and said, "Mommy, dad, I'm going to play." Like, no, it took a while.
Well, these Chinese babies, they sometimes appear to have.
You know, the Chinese yes, they developed something about their society is extremely rigorous and almost unfair to a child, because it whips them into a routine that is mind-blowing, that even some adults could not keep. They're very regimented, very, let me call it, disciplined. Yeah. But, you know, one wonders. One wonders. So when you're practicing, create the atmosphere, warm up, have a goal, be realistic, and then identify your problems and overcome them. You may not be able to play this scale or sing this run. Oh, by the way, let me talk about voice for a moment. Not everybody was designed to be a first soprano, ladies. Some of you have a voice range that is in the alto, and you're trying to sing like a soprano, and you're killing yourself and going hoarse. Some of you are trying to sing very, very loudly, but you haven't learned how to project with your breathing, which is what a very wide part, and the shaping of your mouth, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very wide part of projecting. And Isaac, being a singing coach, I will give you more details about breathing and how to protect your voice and things like that. If I had a voice like Isaac, I would be a very happy guy. Unfortunately, I don't. So I'll just have to deal with it. So anyway, be realistic with what you are able to do in a given time or over a given period or a given season. Being a musician is not just about playing the notes. You need to understand the instrument. And it's good for you if you're a guitarist. Understand the guitar. Understand its history. Research on where the guitar came from. Listen to the great artists and the limitations and things like that. And visualize yourself trying to do some of that. And I know, okay, Isaac, I'm not trying to plug your school, but I think you teach guitar or you have guitar training and everything.
We teach everything.
Okay, even how to make chai mandazi?
Well, not that.
Okay, that's part of the snack. Okay, but here's the thing. It's important to, by the way, Isaac, tell me when I'm time barred.
Yeah, it's still okay.
Okay, it's important. Some of you may have learned the wrong way. I've watched keyboard players playing, and you can see clearly that they may have been taught how to play scales the wrong way or things like that. And so some of you may need to go through a process of unlearning so that you optimize the way you play. If you watch the Olympics and all those kind of things, there's this race called the hurdles. You know, they jump over those things. There is a technique on how to jump. And if you jump with the wrong technique, you'll never be able to optimize your speed and win the race. So sometimes there may be some techniques you may not have managed to get the right way, and exposing yourself to good teaching. It's the same with voice. It's the same with guitar or any other instrument. There's a posture you must have. There's a positioning your hands must have. And playing scales is, you know, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. There are all kinds of scales. Scales is the mama na baba of instrumental performance. If you practice nothing else, practice your scales and make sure you're practicing them right.
Even for singers, yeah?
Yes.
Even for singers, scales I think are important.
Yeah, because it helps you to position your pitching and everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That is also true. For drums, for drummers, by the way, if you have nothing else but a snare drum and a pair of sticks, that's the first place to start. Or if you don't have a snare drum, you can improvise with you know, can you get rubber pads or make them out of rubber? You know, the tube of a tire.
Yeah.
You can make a rubber surface, and if you can get some sticks, that might be able to. I'm not a drummer, unfortunately, but that might work. And now here's the acid test. Where possible, now that there's mobile phones or computers, record yourself when you're practicing. You might be horribly shocked or delightfully, whatever, delighted. Not all the time, but once in a while, maybe after a 2-week period or something like that, just record yourself and see, wow, okay, is there any different? And then reward yourself. Say, my gosh, I managed to practice for 1 hour in the last 4 weeks, 1 hour a week or twice a week. Reward yourself. Why not? And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised what might be possible. I repeat, when you see a musical group on stage and they sound like they were born with the same brain because they're just doing everything together, I would say that every 1 minute of music is many, many, many hours of practice.
Yeah.
Many. And if you are, for example, well, okay, now it's irrelevant, but if you're, for example, in a church where the only access you have to the instruments as a group is on Sunday morning, half an hour before the service, kindly appeal to your pastor to be able to, what's the word? Find ways for you to practice maybe the Saturday before or in the evening during the week or whatever the case may be, because it is critically important to be able to coordinate. And let me say one last thing about personal practice. You know, when you have a barbecue or a wedding or something, and you say, potluck, everybody brings something to eat. Can you imagine 7 people bringing food and only 3 of them have any idea how to cook? So the whole meal is brought together, but it's spoiled because only 3 people are able to cook proficiently. It's the same with a band or a worship team or a group of instrumentalists or a choir. One bad apple can begin to detract from the effectiveness of everybody. For those of you, again, who sing or perform in a group, if a group sounds like 10 people, it will sound like 10 people. But if a group sounds like 10 people who are very well rehearsed individually and collectively, then they become greater than the sum of their parts. Any team, a rugby team, a football team, one weak link. You've heard the saying, a chain is as strong as the weakest link. So tell yourself, as much as possible, I'm going to strengthen myself, not to be the weak link. I rest my case.
Wow.
Let's do like KTN. Over to you, Isaac.
Thank you so much, Pastor Jack.
My privilege. My privilege.
Oh, fantastic. Maybe some will take some questions. Please feel free to share the questions now. Now, I wanted to ask now for especially beginner pianists.
Yes.
Right? How do they break down their practices so that they're able to achieve? Because I know the tendency is when you're learning a new instrument, once you've learned the first song, you want to play it forever, you know, and then that turns practice sessions to you're just enjoying yourself. You're not really making progress in practice. What are the important things that they need to watch out for? Maybe as a beginner pianist, and as an intermediate pianist, and someone who's advancing. What are those key things that they need to focus on?
A beginner pianist is like a baby who has just learned how to crawl. That baby cannot go to Uhuru Park and say, I'm going for a walk. They will drown in that lake, or they will stumble, or they'll be stepped on by people. So there's a place where you must be, as they say, in the closet or in the grooming ground. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's kind of like a bride preparing for a wedding. You know, she would rather be 2 hours late than come with 1 stitch out of place. and so, yeah, as a beginner, you need to understand you're a beginner, full stop. I remember in a certain master's course, a lecturer told his students, he said, you people, you've got your degree, you're coming for a master's. Let me tell you something. Until you have a PhD, you know nothing.
Yeah.
And so anything you write, you have to quote the source from authorities. As a beginner instrumentalist, you have to go to the source. You have to go to the resources and say, I know nothing. How do I do this scale? Have I got it right? Before I move to the next one. Don't try to jump to lesson 10 because it looks more interesting before you've learned lesson 1.
Yeah.
With intermediate people, you must already be applying yourself, not just at the fundamental, but let me try this scale, or let me try playing in D because I've done D major scale. Let me play this in D. Now let me try it in G. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
I know the answer to your question is much more complex, but I hope that helps. And for the masters, is that what you called it?
Well, yeah, or advanced. Or advanced.
For the advanced level, don't ignore your fundamentals. Because you will always need to keep those foundations strong.
Yeah.
It's easy to be doing incredible repertoire, but you've not gone. You must always go back. You see these football teams in the World Cup, they still warm up. They still do drills. They still learn how to dribble. They still learn, if it's basketball, how to do hoops. Even if they are NBA players who are earning $1 million a week or whatever. So you never forget where you came from, because you must always go back there to keep the foundations strong.
So there's another question here.
Yeah, I'm looking at them.
It's very interesting. Is there an age where it is too late to start learning an instrument?
Since I'm about 95 years old, I shouldn't answer that, should I? But anyway, I used to say yes until I met people who are in their 50s and 60s who started from scratch and they kept going.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to say yes, there is. Having said that, there are certain biological things like what was the state of your voice? Did you misuse it? Were you always screaming and it's very hoarse? What is the state of your hands? Are there any medical situations? Your muscles if you're holding a violin, your stamina if you're playing drums. You know, those are the underlying things you may want to consider, which may prevent you from doing one instrument and you choose a different one. Does that make sense?
It does. So someone has side chatted me here,
Right.
asking how is the scale fingering? Again, I think this applies for piano, guitar, and the like. Scale fingering or whatever chord fingering. How crucial is it? Because sometimes you might find musicians who probably are not using the strongly recommended fingering, but it kind of feels like they're still getting the job done.
And they are getting the job done. Yes.
Yes.
Until they move into a genre or a group of musicians or a type of piece of music that would have required that you were very much better equipped at the foundational level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know that when at some point in life, when I started playing with some really incredible, my God, these guys were really good. It's one of the guys said, okay, it's your turn to play a solo. And I played a solo and he stopped. He said, you've not been doing your scales. You're messing that up. There are some passages in the music, or there's some things on the drums, or there's some vocal runs, even in harmony, that you might trip on, you know, and mess the sequence. You get what I'm saying? And yes, there are people who have, put it this way, Joe Khalid, and they've succeeded. But wouldn't you want, while you have the opportunity, to try and improve whatever you've got? Does that make sense?
It does.
Why not? I mean, why not?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. Now, one of the memorable quotes from you that I heard you say from the first time we ever met is that be yourself, everyone is taken.
Yes, I read that in a poster somewhere. And that's an interesting thing. Look, all of us want to be really good. But Isaac, I will never be you, no matter how much I intercede, fast, pray, anything. I'll never be you. I'll never be able to sing like you.
Yeah.
I might be inspired by your singing. And so, what am I saying? Do not diss yourself when you're not executing a piece of music or a song like Mr. or Miss so-and-so. You're not them. However, Mr. or Miss so-and-so can inspire you by how incredible they are to say, wow, I also want to be that good in my own interpretation of how the music is. And yes, in earlier times and in earlier years, you may actually copy that singer, kabisa, you know, sing it, why not? It's okay. Copy them, but find your voice eventually. And that's an advanced level type of thing where you say, now I've learned the masters. I've learned this. I can do BB Winans like BB Winans.
Yeah.
But who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
What can I do that he will never be able to do?
Yeah.
And it's not a comparative thing, but find your voice.
Yes.
A politician, to use a figure of speech, needs to find their voice. They shouldn't just be repeating Barack Obama's speeches, which are incredible.
Yeah.
Or his choice of words is incredible.
Yeah.
But find yourself.
Yeah.
Find your voice.
Yeah.
Find a way. Do you.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. I say that to young men who feel bad because they don't have the same muscles as Mike Tyson. I say that to young ladies who feel bad because they want to look like Beyonce. Let me be blunt. You will never be like Beyonce, but she will never be like you. So find out who you are and be all of that. Does that make sense?
lots of sense.
Yeah.
It does. It does. It does. It does. It does. In fact, I keep saying, and I find this challenge a lot with singers also, that it kind of feels like the higher you can sing, the better of a vocalist you are. And I keep using examples like someone like Sinach. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think her range is that wide. You know,
she's an alto.
or Don Moen. You know,
Don Moen, in fact, when
Yeah.
he came to Nairobi,
Yeah.
had a chance to speak to him, and he said, I realized there's so many good keyboard players in Nairobi. I'm just basic. And then I realized most of the songs he plays are in G major.
Yeah.
And a wide body of the songs, not all of them.
Yes.
And he was the first to tell you, I'm just a basic piano player.
Yeah.
That's why I've got that keyboard player behind me, who was incredible.
Yes.
But his gift, you see, he's doing Don. His gift was words and melodies that stick to you.
Yeah.
And of course the anointing,
Yeah.
And the most versatile, the keyboard player behind him was an employee of his. But he was the guy, and he writes beautiful, memorable songs. Some of his songs mark a stage in your life when you were nearly dying, and you're like, wow. So just be you, do you. Some of you may be incredible songwriters, but not incredible singers. And you'll discover, yes, I can sing, but this song would sound better if so-and-so sang it.
Yes.
That's now maturity.
It's very true. Yeah. So someone is asking, is there a group that I can be added to? We have a Facebook page, B.O.T Limited. You can check it out, like the page. We shall keep you informed. So, Dad, I don't know if you can address this. Let's see. Saying, is sticking fingers out while playing bars bad? I'm not sure if I've understood it, but I guess.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It will give you a problem when you want to play a fast passage and you need to get to a note quickly. If it works for you, I'd like to see that. I do play the bass, and I know that it didn't work for me. Initially, I did it because when I was pretty young, the guitar was too big for me. But, I'm not sure if you're talking about sticking out the first, second, third, fourth finger. It's like with the piano. When you play, you don't have your fingers sticking out. You sort of have them poised over the keyboard. And so likewise with a bass guitar or a guitar, you have it poised over the fretboard as opposed to doing that. You may do a trill or trill or something that causes your fingers to move temporarily. But there again, when you execute scales and chromatic scales and different kinds of scales of bass guitar, you will discover the need to have proximity to the strings.
The strings,
I repeat again, if you're playing a lead guitar, pulling off or hammering on might move your fingers away, but you always want to come back to home base.
And that applies both to the left hand and right hand. Right hand on the plucking and left hand on the...
Well, on the bass guitar, you may do some hammering and thumping, which obviously requires you to, get your thumb off the, or, you may just be showing off and you want to raise your hand and like, look at that lick and slide. I mean, that's just entertainment. I can't answer that question specifically unless I was to deal with the particular person at their instrument.
Yeah, question here. Is there anything like when it comes to music and music education and skill acquisition, is there anything about accelerated learning?
I know that when it comes to basic academics as well as the music, a lot of Orientals have come up with courses that have what they call accelerated learning, and there are techniques, they do that even for English and learning Japanese and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to answer that question off the top of my head without having deeply researched that. Having said that, there is accelerated learning. You can, do I want to use the word fake it, or you can actually accelerate, learn quickly. But in my mind, programming your system to get into things requires time. I think there are elements of accelerated learning that would require you sacrifice major portions of your life in terms of time that you're doing in leisure activities or social activities for you to make that. But I'm sure Isaac will look at that and give a more just answer to that question going down the line.
Yes. Fantastic. There's another one there.
Yes, I'm reading that.
Sometimes I totally lose the urge to do practice. And you know the instruments are around, but I've lost it. So how do you rekindle that?
If you are not having to practice for a music exam or sometimes, you know, it can happen because we are seasonal beings.
Yeah.
Tell yourself, I'm not touching anything for 2 weeks. Then see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, we are human beings. If your practice is not conditional on you having to do something on Sunday or tomorrow, you know, I don't know how long you've been doing it. I don't know what your practice routine has been, but I would be able to answer that question a little bit more deeply if I would. But yes, it is true. Sometimes you're like, you know what, I've had enough of this. Let me take it deeper. Sometimes, I'm not saying it's in your case, sometimes it could be a function of the fact that you're associating practice with issues or circumstances that you find not enjoyable.
Yeah.
You might be associating it to an individual or trauma or something like that. Examine that and see. Yeah, you never know. I mean, that's just on the side.
Yeah. So I usually say that 5 minutes, even a 5 minute daily consistent practice adds more value, than 1 day a week or 24 hours one day, you know, at a go, you know.
Yes, little steps up.
Spread out rehearsals, spread out practices, even as little as 5 minutes.
Yes, because this animal has to be tamed. And an animal is only tamed with a daily routine as far as possible. If it's not there, yes, some of you may not have daily access to instruments, but when you do, go for it like your life depended on it.
Yes. But you've also mentioned something that even if you don't have an instrument, you can visualize. I mean,
yes, or draw it.
Even going by the example, when you're learning how to cycle, it's more here. Even at night, you're actually learning, you know? You're visualizing
it's true.
it.
I know when I started learning how to drive, before that, I had already visualized, watched people driving. When I started learning how to run sound on a PA system or record, you know, a track or whatever it is, I visualize not just the motions of it, but the sound of it and the outcome of it. When I'm writing a song, I will visualize, is this a song for solo and choir? Is it for a jazz instrumental group? And I will visualize in my mind what it sounds like, and I'll think of who's going to come in there and what, you know. It's like cooking. You visualize a masala, you know, a curry or a rice curry or whatever, making you guys hungry. You will think about the ingredients. You'll even know what color the paprika is.
True.
And you'll think of how it's going to be presented. Because presentation is also everything in a meal.
Yeah, I like that. Great. Please keep the questions coming. You can send them via email. We can address them on our next webinar, which we are going to communicate a little bit later. So please stay in touch. You can like our Facebook page, you know, at B.O.T Limited, so that you can stay connected. We shall also be making communication via emails. So if you don't have your email, you can send it to us. Our official phone number is 0705 800 675. I'll say
and
it
the
again.
unofficial one?
Direct M-Pesas, offerings, and 07 to, so I'll say that again, 0705 800 675. Now, before all these things, we usually run music programs in Kitengela and Nairobi for the individual one-on-one classes. But since this pandemic started, we've been running online classes, and they've been totally effective, completely effective. So we have affordable offers running right now. So please give us a call immediately and schedule for your class. and you will not be disappointed. So make use of the time that you have right now. Let's learn a new skill, you know, keep yourself consistent. Our next session is going to be amazing. I'll be having some people who will come and share with us. Remember what I mentioned, that emulate, practice, and not perform, you know? So they're going to share with us how they practice, how they've gotten to where they are. They're going to share a little bit more insights concerning this subject. So looking forward to that. Stay connected. Again, share all the questions, give us feedback on how we can make this better, what you want to learn, all these things. Give us a call if you want to enroll for a class, and we're going to learn together. Fantastic. Thank you all. Thank you all. I appreciate. God bless you. Watch out for the next webinar. Might be in 2 weeks. We shall communicate. Thank you very much. God bless you. You can now unmute and say bye as you exit.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Isaac.